Hey guys, Max here, doing a quick 1 a.m. tier list, full red mode, Halloween. Yeah, let me fix this lighting. Bang? I don't know why my computer is so red at night. I swear I'm not actually a tomato. But let's get started. Now, these are all the artifacts that we currently have, and I have some leaks about the Ice Gauntlet and Bow artifact, even though they're not officially on the PTR yet. Which I'll get into those at the end. You can click for it if you want to know. But there's been a lot of changes to weapons in general, and I think a lot of these artifacts that seem weak currently might actually surprise you how well they're playing out on the PTR. So let's start going. I meant to make this video day 1, but I had some issues recording, and then day 2 I also had some issues recording, and then I got to use more stuff, and there's been more changes, and all the perk changes, and a lot has been happening, and my opinions have been kind of constantly changing. So let's start with the Abyss. I'll add some visuals on the screen. Maybe I'll have to double check everything, but the Abyss is a very solid great axe that scales off intelligence and has a perk where as long as you're using mana, it does 20% more damage, which is very solid. Along with that, it has a built-in attunement, making it definitely, I think this is the only artifact with built-in attunement, which is a little bit silly. I mean, you could argue that Mjolnir also, but I originally had it on S tier, and I still think it's going to be somewhere up there because it's going to enable Fire Staff, Great Axe, and some other stuff. And overall, it just feels really nice as an idea. It looks great also, by the way. Let me pull up the image just so you guys can see what it looks like. There we go. Here, I pulled it up. It looks sick. I think it's definitely one of the contenders for the nicest looking artifact next to Serenity, and for me, the Pestilence. But it's very strong, very solid, and I'm looking forward to making builds of this for sure. It might be more of a meme item at the end of the day. I might have overvalued it, is what I for sure just thought it would be like the best weapon in the game when I first saw this. But without strength, initially we thought without strength it wouldn't do that much damage, but with Abyss, 20% damage buff and this, it's pretty nuts. So yeah, it's still an S tier. Maybe it's not the strongest weapon in the game, but it's just so good. They love Great Axe over there. It's pretty fun. So I mean, I was gonna do the finisher, but let's just talk about the Hatchet right away. Man, I have been trying to play throwing hatchet since day 1, since the beginning, since when throwing hatchets, you'd use a move and it would desync so badly, you'd throw it where your mouse is and it would like shoot it 90 degrees to the left of your mouse. It was so bad in OPR, and they keep buffing it, and the PTR is kind of nuts. They have some really big buffs for the throwing hatchet outside of this artifact, and it definitely is going to be crazy in PvE, but it's starting to look crazy in PvP also. There are some nasty combos I'll talk about, but it looks nice. I actually think, at first I thought this hatchet, when I saw it for the first time, I was excited, I was happy, but I was like, this is gonna be a meme build. I think throwing hatchet's a little bit underrated because of how hard it is to use, and not many people actually have tried to master it, because it's just like, it wasn't worth it. But now, the throwing hatchet buffs to rending throw and the damage accumulation, this is pretty nuts. It's a really strong unique perk of 25% cooldown reduction on all skills every 5 seconds for just throwing a projectile. This, I think, includes your auto attacks and normal projectiles, so it's very easy to proc. You don't even have to hit. It doesn't make, I thought it would make more sense that you have to hit a projectile and that makes it proc, but if it's just throw, this is ridiculous. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this. I see a lot of hatchet players being like, that's kind of trash, because not many people respect throwing hatchet, but I'm gonna put it out there. I actually think throwing hatchet's nuts with all the buffs. And let's talk about Life Taker now. I think the Life Taker combo between either throwing hatchet, if you can aim your shots to constantly proc disintegrate, or with Blunderbuss is going to be absolutely nuts. There's a new, not a new perk, but they reworked a perk where it removes like buffs from enemies and it has like a much lower cooldown now if you crit them. And both the throwing hatchet and the blunderbuss just kind of crit constantly for like small crits, or like the throwing hatchet actually has some nice crits, but it has like a guaranteed crit every 3 hits. Not every 3 hits, every third thrown hatchet, so you can know when your next like thrown hatchet has a crit and play around that for guaranteed like hits. Maybe you just only use it on a CC target. So yeah, I think this would be a nasty combo. I think a lot of people are sleeping on this weapon also because they see that it scales with dexterity, and they think of musket and they think of bow, because those are normally ranged dexterity weapons that come to mind, not throwing hatchet. But this is, it's gonna be a new game, bro. I mean, this is a builds I've been trying to, not this one in particular, but disintegrate rends, I think, and it does damage over time. I think those are the 2 things it does. So it'll be solid, and it applies on both weapons without a condition. So it'll just be a buff to your throwing hatchet as a main. And with how many buffs they've given to social distancing, it's really overtuned currently. It's an overtuned move. If you know the tech where you jump backwards twice as far, no one's ever gonna be able to catch you because of the cooldown reduction. So you don't have to pull this out. The keen, that's bad. Life stealing is bad. This is fine, but these don't matter. All that matters is that it gives it disintegrate and just buffs your throwing hatchet. I think I'll talk more about this item when I talk about Blunderbuss, but this is a really nice synergy. But with Blunderbuss, it doesn't scale with the damage, sadly. So I mean, it doesn't matter that much because you're not going to pull out your life gauntlet to do damage. I'm not sure how much damage the skills are going to do if they scale with dexterity instead of their normal focus int. So it would be interesting to see if they still chunk. But yeah, I'm gonna put the life taker. I actually, hatchets could be crazy. I put it initially like in a meme build for like B tier, but I actually think it's crazy currently, and I think they want throwing hatchet to be good. It's gonna be very hard to play on like Great Axe. Like Great Axe has finesse, don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere near like, I think throwing hatchet's definitely one of the harder builds in the game. But if they just have like infinite cooldown reduction, it becomes quite brain dead, and it becomes very easy to kite with. So hopefully they strike a balance. Life taker. I initially had it in C tier because the secondary perks aren't that good, but it's just a really nice synergy item, and I think a lot of people will try the builds with it. It all comes down to how strong Disintegrate is. Yeah, so Disintegrate, just to pull it up to make sure. I might get changed in the PTR, and it's 10% armor, so it's like a rend. Yeah, and stacking with all the other rends on throwing hatchet, it's gonna be nuts. Like, you're actually gonna get blown up out of nowhere, and you just like, imagine you throw your you get the root of the social distance, you get a guaranteed rend, and then you get your guaranteed third hit hatchet for the crit, and that's just gonna blow someone up. And even then, if you're just constantly throwing these for free, you're just applying debuffs on everyone across, and then you're making the debuffs last longer with the throwing hatchet passive tree. And the more debuffs they have, the more damage you do them throwing hatchet. It's a really nasty combo that I think people have been not sleeping on entirely, but it's definitely been undervalued just because of how bad it's been for so long. So I'm gonna put this up in B tier. I had both of these lower initially, but I actually think they're quite really strong in the current PTR. Next up, let's talk about Finisher, another synergy item. Let's put it up here. Looks kind of cool. So, a little katana. Attacks against bleeding targets deal 15% more damage and reduce Flourishing's cooldown by 5%. Cooldown works on both weapons. Now, the main way I understood this is the works of both weapons part includes the 15% more damage against bleeding targets. So niche use for maybe like your second, if you're running musket rapier or something and you're just trying to kite, your second hit you put down your bleeding trap, and then your musket hit will do 15% extra damage just because you have this rapier equipped as your secondary. And that's just like stuff like that. You get keenly jagged on your throwing hatchet, and then your second hit against people does like extra damage. It's just like a nice to have, I think, in a lot of builds. And then there's the main bleeding build that it's kind of been a meme. This is just for PvP. I'm mainly talking for PvE. This is gonna be absolutely nuts. I think Rapier was already in a really good spot in PvE. It's like one of the best DPS buttons, and it's really good. And this is just nuts. So PvE wise is be absolutely insane. But this tier list is more for PvP. Probably should have clarified that at the start, but that's just how it goes at night. I think initially this is going to be interesting also with the Butcher, which I'll get into right after. But the main critique I'm worried about is the secondary perks. Keen Tondo got buffed, and that causes a weakness, which will be really nice in PvE. It's a little bit strange. The 10 seconds is kind of cool. And the 10 seconds plus, let's start with the Butcher, because I think that's the main combo. Before you would go Void Gauntlet and you would go Rapier. And now that the Life Taker scales with Dexterity, you could still do that. You're not going to get the combo of Disintegrate because it's not a ranged attack. But you can run these both together, and then you can have that like a one-hit build for that procs the bleeds, and then you proc with Deadly Flourish, and it like makes people absolutely, like, if they're below 50%, they're guaranteed dead here. With this, it's gonna be pretty nuts. That was the last patch. I'm not sure how it's gonna do against, because everyone's gonna be heavy now. If you haven't seen a lot, everyone's heavy currently because of how ridiculous that health potion is. That 10% HP per second for 20 seconds every 60 seconds. That's definitely going to get changed for PvP. And also currently heavy dodging has been buffed to be the same distance as light dodging for the most part. Light dodging forward is still slightly longer, but it is nice buffing medium, especially because when you, like before, when you dodge with medium, it would just be better if you just walked, which felt really bad. It made sense for heavy, not so much for medium, but they buffed both medium and heavy. Not sure if that's going to stay on the release. I personally don't think so for heavy. I think it's a little bit too much, especially if the resilience buffs already, where heavy has more resilience now and light got nerfed almost. Light definitely got nerfed, not almost. So yeah, a little bit of a tangent. Let's get back to the tier list. Sorry. Finisher. It's definitely better than the Life Taker, I think, in most cases. Life Taker might be better because the builds it's used in are stronger, but individually I feel like it's a little bit unfair. This has like a lot more individual potential and the Life Taker does, because Life Taker just has trash perks. Like, why is there Keen and Life Stealing on this? I don't understand. You could do some kind of blade build. Why Keen? I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of like, there's some niche builds where you go for like one big hit, but you still don't want Keen. You ever have like anything else? Rogue, maybe you know, some kind of stun and then like stab build. I can't. But then what's the point of Disintegrate? Yeah, the main purpose I see for this is just to apply Disintegrate on your secondary. So it's, I mean, it's a mix for sure. That's why I'm put this in A. Definitely deserves A. Yeah. So next up, let's talk about the Butcher, because they kind of go hand in hand. The Butcher and the Finisher. Butcher, Bloodletting, bleeds last 33% longer. So on a 6-second bleed, which is what most bleeds are from Kinley Jagged, as you see down here, and Whirling Blade, Jagged Whirls, 6 seconds, 33% is like, yeah, it's 2 seconds. So that's value. And especially if you use the Finisher, 10-second bleed from Keen Tondo, that's going to be 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds, something like that. So that's even more value for these long bleeds. So if you want to go some kind of bleed value build where you get in and out, this would be pretty cool. But I think that's where it stops. You could run this as like a secondary to combo with weapons, but I don't really think it's that valuable. Maybe if you're running a musket and you don't really need a secondary because you just play like a rat, you can just, you know, your Keenly Jaggeds it'll buff your Keenly Jaggeds, and I don't know, some niche uses like that. And I think these weapons that work on both weapons, they just can be secondaries that are useful, and that's why they have so much potential. I think it's actually quite important. But the issue I have with this weapon is that the empowering Whirling Blade that's forced on here is really bad in small scale PvP. That's, I mean, whatever. And if they made the Whirling Blade inflict bleed deals 10% weapon damage. Instead of weapon damage, if it scaled off the like the skills damage, then when you have the empowerment on the whirling blade, it would make the bleed do more damage, and it'd be kind of nuts. Maybe it'd be busted, but then you can, like, it just makes more sense if these two actually like synergized, because this is just bad. You'd rather have something like another perk here, and it's taking up like a really useful perk slot. It's just extra bleeds and keenly jagged. It's obviously an artifact, so it's better than legendaries, but I think maybe even in some situations, just a best in slot legendary would be better than this. So yeah, not great. Not great. I definitely think this is one of the weaker ones, but sword and shield is looking very solid overall. There's the shields especially are going to carry it, so you might just see it, you know, just for value. We'll see. This is nerfed, actually. This used to be 52% damage when I last looked, so that's interesting. Unless I'm misremembering. That's possible. Okay, speaking of shields, let's go on to Michael and the wall. Wow. Let's start with the easy one, the wall, S tier. There's currently a bug in PTR where we can dodge with this. You're not supposed to be able to dodge, so that's gonna be fixed. That's not intended. I'm not gonna value it around that, but shield wall, gain 5% base damage reduction, huge, but understandable. You cannot dodge, but you have 33% more stamina. Okay, crazy. That's a lot of stamina. That's 33 stamina. That's like 2 dodges if you have your 3-inch attacks. And then you have your hardy on top of that. Yeah. You take 25% less damage from all elemental sources. I wonder if this is actually going to work properly on like elemental aversion, because elemental aversion actually doesn't like block a lot of moves in the game. They're slowly fixing it, especially like ice gauntlet stuff and attunement and other things. It just goes through elemental aversion, but I wonder if it goes through this. I'm not sure. If it does, I most likely will. Then it makes it a lot worse than it sounds. If it doesn't, this is nuts. They're buffing all the block perks, so that's another thing we have to keep in mind. Receive 10% less stamina damage while blocking, huge, especially for this build. Gain 10% fortify for 3 seconds on critical hit. Kind of random. I'm surprised it's not another block perk. If it was, this probably just be crazy. But yeah, if this was in the game currently, it would be so meta defining. But what's crazier is that in PTR, heavy and medium it's way better than it currently is live. So that's why I think the wall is just insane. I don't know how we're gonna kill tanks. Currently you have like 25k HP with con, and then you have enough perks. Like currently you can only go so much into attributes. You can't just only go con. I think it caps out at 500 if I remember correctly. So you have to do little side builds, which I think is healthy, because I don't want to imagine like a 30k HP tank with a wall and just standing on point. I don't know. It's a little bit too scary for me, I think. Too scary. So yeah, the wall I think is definitely S. But along with like crazy tanks, there are crazy debuffs that they're introducing to the game to kind of counter this. I'm not sure how we're going to get through the stamina block though, because a lot of these debuff weapons like Hatchet and Blunderbuss don't do very well versus block. So maybe people are going to have to start going like thwarting strikes and other different builds. And a lot of the thwarting perks, they're actually changing so you don't have to fully charge heavy attacks, which would be a huge buff for most heavy weapons like Great Axe, Hammer, Great Sword. Not Great Sword, most of the time you just fully charge it anyways because of how quick it is. Even Spear, like a lot of like thwarting will be very nice on a lot of moves. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So maybe that'll help deal with shields, but this is definitely up here. I'm not sure how I'm going to order these. It feels weird seeing the Hatchet up here because it's so different from what I originally had on this list. But the Hatchet is just, I might be coping as a long-time Hatchet thrower, but it's there. It's happening. The dream's happening finally. They finally buffed it too much. People are going to be not happy if the amount of social distancing throws, but I am. Okay, the other shield, Michael, very solid Kite Shield. Interesting thing they've done, they removed the weight from shields, I think, in general. Going heavy or medium or light, actually viable now without messing up your weights. Obviously, you could go heavy before, but for light and medium was kind of weird of shields. And this is a very nice kind of utility shield. Refreshing Cleanse, cooldowns reduced by 5%. Okay, that's like a little bit boring, but that's fine. That's the same thing as like the level 25 perk for Focus or something. I can't remember which one gives you cooldown reduction, but it's just 20 perks. On block, lose 1 debuff. I need to test this. Losing debuffs is huge, especially if all the debuffs flying around currently. With the bleeds lasting longer, the disintegrates, the buffs to the rends and other things. This is really nice. This is really nice. And I think a lot of people who don't PvP might undervalue this, but this is pretty nice. It's so nice. Now they're also buffing again all the unblock perks. I think they're going to be even stronger than these, but on blocking 30% in power, very solid. On block heal for 3% of your base max HP. Base, so that's like what, 8k probably now at 65? 240, there you go. About 240. But there's no cooldown on these, is my confusion. I'm not sure what the actual cooldown on these are going to be, because there's no way that every time you block something, you lose 1 debuff, or you heal 240. I mean, that could be possible, but on something like the wall, if you get the perk that heals you, if you get this perk as your random perk on the wall, it's going to be insane. You can just go between health trading and then healing, and it's going to be absolutely nuts. Lifesteal, I don't know why this is on here. I'm not a big fan of lifesteal. They're also like changing how lifesteal works, and they're changing a lot of lifesteal moves to not proc off big clumps and other things. So maybe in some ways they're going to buff it, but it's kind of like an awkward perk. Sorry, I love this one. But yeah, overall, I think like this Kite Shield is very flexible. It doesn't force you to go one build. It's just good, and it looks pretty cool. It's being pretty cool. I didn't actually show off the wall. Also looks pretty cool. Looks like a big wall. Kind of looks like something from Hyrule, like a Zelda game, which is pretty, I don't know, I like it. I used to be a tank, but that's not me anymore. This Kite Shield it's just so flexible. I don't know why you wouldn't run it. Like, what Kite Shield would possibly be better than this? Maybe if you're running Sword and Shield and you're going like a medium or light build that's more offensive, you would just run this. So yeah, it's just S tier. Just so flexible. It's not game breaking. I don't like the wall is, but yeah, the Hatchet, just I know I keep talking about it. Throwing Hatchet, I think it's a combination of Throwing Hatchet being good and the artifact also being really good. So it's hard to like balance artifacts, because maybe the artifact is very powerful, but the ability or the build it's trying to focus on is trash. So it's like, do I value based off how strong the artifact is in combination of that? That's what I currently am doing. So yeah, I think this like 25% it's really a strong ability. So okay, let's move on. Let us go for the Fire Staff. They are changing how Flamethrower works. Currently, it does half damage, but it has a faster tick rate and some other stuff. And if you get interrupted while Flamethrowing, it actually goes on cooldown, thank God. My main issues with Flamethrower is it feels really bad to play against as light, because you roll and it'll still be hitting you, because it just like, and they don't have to aim at all because the flames last like too long, and it doesn't actually like, the game isn't built for it properly. It's kind of like if you ever played Team Fortress 2, the original Flamethrower for the Pyro, you could just kind of spray it left and right and it'll just always tick damage because the flames will last so long. Hopefully they make it so you have to actually aim it. But this weapon is really cool. Makes Fire Staff scale of strength. I definitely could see some fun like Warhammer combo builds maybe, or just Sword and Shield and you go tank and then you have a Flamethrower on your side. And you pull out the Flamethrower when you want to do damage, then you switch back to the wall to heal back up. It'll be very cool. And these are very solid buffs for Flamethrower. The only issue with this is there's no like shit. Okay, let's fix the recording. Okay, I'm back. Late night tomato here. Why is am I too tall for my camera? For real? That's crazy. I love how it cuts out my hair because my hair is like black. Yeah, sorry boys, the quality is not here. My computer shuts down at this time normally, so this is what happens when I drink coffee. I normally don't drink coffee, but I drink some coffee now. I'm just awake at night, I guess. What can you do? Fire staff. Where was I at? Let's just start. Inferno looks cool. Looks like a fire staff, actually. No, it just looks like a fire staff. I've seen cooler. I definitely want to do a visual tier list. But yeah, my issue with, I think I said all the benefits. The main disadvantage I see with this is that it's gonna hit pretty weak without attunement and without key. I mean, vicious is nice. Why is it? Wow, they nerfed fucking vicious. Without more damage perks. I mean, you could put attunement on here, and I think they're nerfing attunement in general though. So maybe the meta is gonna change completely, and it's not gonna actually matter what has attunement and what doesn't. But based off what I currently know, this is gonna be strong. It's gonna be very different, but for the flamethrower build, it's gonna be like, it's gonna be nuts. And I just think these weapons that scale with alternative attributes they allow for so much. I really like them, but I hope they don't go too crazy with them at the same time. I like how this one is made for a specific build, and that limits it. It's good. I think at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing. And these weapons are very strong, but they're going to be interesting to balance. I'm excited to see what builds. I think flamethrower and then sword and shield, like the wall, is going to be scary. But I think all of these, I think it's more going to be that sword and shield is really good with the wall, and then you just kind of use the flamethrower as a meme on the side to do some range damage as a flexible, as an escape. It has utility. It's a good weapon, you know, and it's scaling of strength, so it hits hard. Yeah, it deserves to be an S tier, maybe an A tier. I just feel like these are all like in a different level, and I don't have clear guidelines how I want to organize these. I think let's rename these categories. Meta defining. They all have potential. It's gonna do C for C. These are the meta defining. I think the wall is gonna be meta defining for sure. Maybe the fire staff will be along with it, but I think if the wall isn't amazing, I don't think the fire staff is going to be. If the wall is amazing, this is just codependent on the wall, I think, in a lot of ways. So it's a win-win more kind of situation, which is fine. So you could put this up here, but I don't personally think so. Ooh, this is the name for this one. Okay, there we go. I think I'm happy with these tiers. Now let's move on to, which one do we want to talk about? Let's do something easy. Scorpion, Sting. Actually, this one's not easy because I haven't tested it out yet. The thing with every pull in this game is either they work well and they're good, or they don't work. Example, Old Reap on Great Axe was trash because people would just jump out of it. Same with Vortex or whatever the move is called. They fixed those, but there's still stuff like the on Blunderbuss, the Venturing Claw is ass. It doesn't pull you far enough most of the time. They can get out of it too early. If there's a height difference, you fly up and then you just fall right back down. It doesn't work properly. Now I feel like maybe that's because it's moving you instead of moving the enemy, whatever. But they have messed up pulls plenty of the time. And what is distance on this? I don't know. A lot of things, a lot of factors. And initially when I was rating this, I didn't like the Trenchant Strikes. But now that they've reworked Trenchant Strikes to not have to have fully charged heavy attacks, it becomes a lot better. And I was docking points for not having Keenly Empowered or Attunement, but they're nerfing Attunement. They're moving around the power within the perks. So with Sundering Javelin and this being a Javelin build, that's fine. 10 seconds. It's not, I think you'd rather have a damage perk, but it makes sense for a Javelin build. The 160% is going to be funny if you snipe someone across the map plus the scaling damage perk with the Javelin. It's going to be very funny just to see it chunk people. I hope it does. It'd be hilarious. You see like a musket person sniping on top of the rock in OPR, you chuck your Javelin at them and it just pulls them off and they lose like 80% of their HP. Yeah. So the weapon's really cool. So in the minimum, it's going in cool tier. However, how good it is, it depends on how strong the pull is. I'm not sure about that currently. If it's just Reap, it'll be here. In some cases, I think in a lot of cases, you're not going to want to run Javelin, and you'd rather just have a legendary spear. So yeah, that's the difference between the Kite Shield and the spear. The Kite Shield, I don't see a situation where you'd ever want a different Kite Shield. Michael just seems to do it all. But the spear, I could see plenty of situations where you don't want to run Javelin and it's not as flexible. So yeah, that's why it's going to go in cool tier. Top of cool tier though, I think it has, purely for PvP, has much more potential than the Rapier. Unless Rapier just becomes absurd next patch full of buffs. Currently they've given it 2 buffs, one giving it iframes on its little Poke move for the life stealing, leeching. Something I can't remember the name, but it's not a move you see that much, leeching flurry. And they buffed Tondo to make it, you take less damage from Tondo targets, which is going to be interesting. A lot of Tondo buffs. So the Rapier might be moving up. I might have undervalued it here, but this is what I currently think of it. My experience, I'm not a huge Rapier player, so let me know what you guys think. Yeah. Okay, next. Which one? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, choose a tiger by the toe. He catches, if he bites, let him go. Something like that. Let's do Odo. Flail. Flail looks awesome. This weapon looks so powerful. It's an alternative for tank and PvE and healer. Both of these classes have only had no alternatives, really. You need sword and shield, but now thankfully you have an alternative to that. And healers only have the life staff, but now there's another healing weapon, other than the Void Gauntlet, which is mainly just self-healing and AoE buffs. Oh yeah, Tondo's not here. Pull it up for you. Yeah, there we go. It looks really cool. Definitely looks really cool. It synergizes with both weapons again. This is anytime a weapon synergizes with both weapons, I think there's a lot of potential. Block, heal for 5% base HP. You could combine this with Michael to get 8% HP on block. Or if the wall, man, if the wall, this is gonna be ridiculous. Holy moly. Just this on its own, it's like, I think it's only base HP. So it's gonna be like 500 or something every block though. There's no cooldown on it. I don't know if there's gonna be a cooldown, if they're gonna change it, but issue, it has a life stealing, which I don't like. Maybe you'll get a lot of value out of this as a tank. Yeah, this is good, but it's not crazy. It's solid. It's solid. I think it might be crazy with the wall. I think ironically this part stands out to me more, especially with how tanky people are. It's just going to get a lot of value. I think it's going to be a very tanky meta. So where do I think this is going to fit? Definitely better than the Scorpion. Yeah, I'm going to go with this. I think with synergy with the wall, the Odo's going to have way more potential than the Fire Staff, just for value. And maybe you run all 3 of these as your I don't know how strong the armor perks and jewelry perks are yet for the artifacts, but this would be a very funny triple weapon combo for artifacts. Let's talk about Serenity. I kind of been putting it off. I think this is the worst artifact. I'm just gonna say it now. They've buffed all the trenchants, but this is good. These are good. The perks are good on like this move. It's just the main unique perk is you get Empower capped most of the time, the first issue, and second issue Fortify is not that important. Like it's a solid Greatsword, and you'd want it over a normal Greatsword. It's flexible enough. It's very flexible, similar to the shield, but at the same time, I could also see a world where you just use a legendary Greatsword. I mean, I think in what situation would you want a legendary Greatsword instead of this? I guess if you're running 3 other artifacts. But if you just want an artifact to run and you have an extra artifact slot, because you can only have 3 at most, then you just run this instead of any Greatsword. It's good, but it's also bad. Put it in the rework tier. That's my opinion on it. I made the rework tier for this one. I think this should be reworked personally. I'd like to see some more flavor. It's kind of boring. It doesn't synergize with this. It's just Greatsword, Unga Bunga. Yeah, I like. It looks really nice. Let's talk about that. This looks amazing. I love how it looks. So I hope they make it cooler. I mean, maybe it being flexible is the best way to go, so you could always just use it. I mean, if you're using Greatsword, you're probably just going to use this, right? I definitely think it's in like meh. I just it's a good artifact, but it's not unique, and it doesn't offer anything exciting, I guess. But same could be said about Michael, but there's nothing that lets you lose debuffs on block, to my knowledge. And that is like very strong, just constantly cleansing. Why do I like Michael so much more than the Greatsword? I'm not sure. Let me know what you guys think. Let's talk about something cooler. Let's talk about I have 3 favorites so far for me, so I'm definitely gonna be biased. The throwing hatchet is one of them, Life Taker number 2, and the third one is the Blunderbuss. And this is because I play these weapons, honestly. This is like my main weapons for PvP, and they have been for a while. Ice Gauntlet also, but we'll talk about those at the end. Now, Blunderbuss. Wow, this one's really cool. Let me just read it. Attacks against targets inflict a stack of poison and decrease to incoming and outgoing healing effectiveness by 7%. Stacks 3 times for 3 seconds, so 21% if you hit people 3 times. And along with that, 15% damage against poison and disease targets, so you just get 15% damage against people you've hit once, or that other people have hit with this weapon. Critical strikes against targets below 50% inflict disease, reducing healing effectiveness on the target by 26%, so a total of 50% reduced healing. How tanky people are, and I think this is going to be really nice. This is going to be really nice to have people just shooting at the wall from behind, just constantly like annoying him with debuffs. And along with the Life Taker, you could just absolutely like debuff someone completely. But maybe along with the Hatchet, you could run some Blunderbuss Hatchet builds. Could be interesting. It's really going into this disease build. You'd probably want to have disease grenades with this. The Keen is, I don't think you need it. The Blunderbuss just randomly crits all the time. This is kind of a dead perk. But if this wasn't a dead perk, I think there wouldn't be a situation where you wouldn't run this. If this was like keenly empowered, this would just be too strong. So I think that says a lot about the power of this, how strong the unique perk is, at least in my eyes. Or whatever works. There's a bunch of new perks, which they're not. Yeah, this is not updated. They're getting rid of all the shirking, and they're doing a bunch of other stuff that I'm gonna have to cover in another video. I'm not sure if I even will. I'm sure someone else will make a video on it. And this absolutely looks amazing. So I think the combo between Ice Void Gauntlet and Blunderbuss is important because of how easy it is to constantly hit people, and you're constantly going to be proccing this Disintegrate on people and stacking up the damage along with that. I'm not sure how the scaling on the void damage is going to work, especially with this going up dexterity and this being a strength int weapon. You could just go int still though. If this weapon's end of higher, yeah, it's not going to be higher, so you just go int and strength, and this will still do damage. So that's fine. So, oh man, I can't wait to try this out in game, man. I'm so excited. There's gonna be so many cool builds to try. I'm really hyped for the expansion. Hope you guys are too. So let's get out two more weapons. I'll be quick. The mechanic, they're buffing up I think they're reworking mending sticky bombs. I don't know what they're reworking it to. I definitely have to do an update on this. They've changed a lot of things for the trapper build. They've buffed up this. I'm not sure how. I've seen people using it. It just does a bunch more damage. But overall, this is pretty weak. Just get that out the way. But the unique thing about this artifact is that it has 2 weapon perks on it. And the non-unique thing about this artifact is that it's going to hit like a wet noodle. It has no damage perks on it, which is not good for a musket. A lot of people are hating on it, and because like, what are you going to do? You're going to trap someone and then heal your health with a sticky bomb? I mean, what? This is 32%, now it's 22%. Yeah, I wonder why the numbers have changed. So we'll see. Well, you could run the musket with this and then the bleed once again. You get 15% damage bonus, you get some attunement or something, or you get Vorpal headshot maybe and you just go for a headshot. I'm not sure. They're reworking the musket in a lot of ways where it's hard to say. I like the theme. I like how this weapon looks. It looks really cool. Doesn't even look like it belongs in New World. It looks like from another game, which is not a bad thing. I think it looks really nice. And it's definitely in the cool tier, okay? But it's definitely bottom of a cool tier. It might be way stronger than I'm currently giving it credit for. But I don't know what the musket reworks are going to be. They're definitely trying to make the musket less of a hit scan tool, and I think that's because they don't know how to use anti-cheat in their game, which is also why I think they're getting rid of a lot of the cancels because they can't deal with macro abusers, even though a lot of the cancels are used by legit players and it's a form of skill expression, and I'm not really happy that they're getting rid of it. But I guess it wasn't intended, which is an argument. So, but a lot of like really cool bugs that aren't initially intended become mechanics in games because you learn to use them, and it's cool. And I like seeing stuff like that in games, and I don't really like when developers get rid of it. I don't think it's necessary. They're getting rid of the Berserk cancel for the Hatchet also. The BB nade canceling of the Blunderbuss. You could have just you could work around it. I think it's cool to have these cancels in the game. It ups the skill ceiling, and it's the projectile rework for musket. I like it. I don't really think a hit scan weapon belongs in New World exactly. It doesn't work well. Every time it's good, people hate it. Every time it's bad, people hate it. People don't like playing against hit scan from across the map. And they've nerfed the distance. They've done a bunch of things, and they're going back to how it originally was in beta, where there was projectiles flying for the musket, and it was just cooler to see little pellets flying for muskets. I think it fits a lot more with the theme of New World. It might end up surprising a lot of people with how strong this wet noodle is going to be. I currently don't know enough about it, so I'm just going to put it in the cool tier, okay? Last but not least, Mjolnir. Now, I haven't heard of them reworking Mighty Gravel. I'm just going to read it. I already know what it does, but 99% of your hammer damage is converted to lightning, and you deal 20% more lightning damage with both weapons. There's going to be lightning damage. Like, you're going to be able to have armor that buffs your damage. So you could run, like, lightning damage armor. And then you could do some wacky stuff with this for sure. But I think it's going to be more of a PvE thing. People try and go this build. Because Mighty Gavel, unless they rework the move, is definitely meme tier. Like, meme tier. Like, I've never seen anyone use it in PvP with the hammer. People have used they use clear out, they use every single move except Mighty Gavel, and the Mighty Gavel hits reduce the ability cooldown by 10. It used to be 20%. Max 2 activations per impact. Why is everything reduced by 10%? I'm not sure if the website's bugging out. Yeah, it's supposed to be 20%. This is giving the value of when it's on other gear instead of on the weapon. Yeah, so I think the website's bugging out, but you become Mario with a hammer and you just kind of stomp on stuff. Cool. People have a dodge. People's dodge got buffed. No one's ever getting hit by this twice. The weaken is, if it causes like a lightning effect, that's gonna be so cool. I love the theme. I love how this weapon's like a lightning rod also. It's very thematic. I think if there's ever a way to make your other weapons do more lightning damage also, this will just be a 20% damage buff to your secondary, which is really strong. Like I said, you have to be on the lookout for all these artifacts that scale with both your weapons. I love this. I wish more abilities scaled with both weapons. I know it's hard to balance, but I just don't like that so many things disappear when you switch weapons. I think I always liked more synergistic effects, and I'm happy they're adding them kind of back in a weird way, but you know, I'm happy to see it. I think the next weapon they're going to add is going to be a lightning staff. Calling it here. I know a lot of people are talking about the daggers. Last time they talked about the daggers, they said it was too balanced. Like, they tried them out, but it was too hard to balance, so they moved on to something else. And yeah, I think they're making another like magic staff, and I'm guessing it's gonna be a lightning staff, and we'll see how that synergizes. I think it's gonna be some kind of elemental staff. So yeah, for PvP, this is definitely. I don't want to put it in the meta tier because it's cool, but it's not the it's a strong artifact that's building around a bad tool, being Mighty Gavel. But it's cool, okay? I think I'm happy with this for now. Things are going to be changing constantly with the PTR. All these numbers are subject to change, but I hope I gave a quick overview of all the artifacts we have currently in the game, except there's two more. I almost forgot. One is the Ice Gauntlet. There's currently a data mine. I'll pull up an image somewhere like here. I know my camera's bugging out because it's dark right now. The Ice Gauntlet, it just does, both weapons do extra damage to chilled, snow, like slowed, and whatever debuffs Ice Gauntlet does. So both weapons do extra damage to those targets. We don't have a name for it yet, so this is very like experimental. It's not on the game yet. I'm sure they're messing around more with it. But more interestingly is the bow. The bow is confirmed to be called the Bolt, and it currently does 100% lightning damage. So there's the synergy with the hammer, and on full health targets, it stuns. So we're theory crafting right now that if you use Rain of Arrows, it's part of your abilities, and it does lightning damage, and it's going to like AoE stun people at full health, which is, we don't know how long this stun's going to be, but that's really cool. I love to see that. And just a bow hammer kind of thing, I think that'd be pretty cool. I haven't seen that weapon combination ever, and yeah, I don't know, we'll see. But the Bolt, I like that one also. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed. I know this is gonna be a little bit of a raw video, but I've been trying to record this one for like 3 days, and just like not recording, wrong format, microphone wasn't on the right audio track, and just stuff like that. So I'm like up at night, I'm like, you know what, screw it. Got some new info, had some new thoughts, tried out some more of these weapons. Let's make this, let's talk about it before. And I'm surely by tomorrow or after tomorrow, all of this is going to be a change. So whatever. Anyways, take care. Hope you enjoyed. Any suggestions, let me know what you guys think. Comment down below. Ramble done. Peace.